a really big day for me, and one of the things that the biggest pleasure I have is actually I've known this person, TK Gray. I'm gonna just call you TK Gray, doctor, for a while because of social media, and that's we all complain about social media, folks, and social media has its bad sides, but it also has some amazing good sides, and the amazing good side is you get to meet people in this virtual world. And TK has been an advocate for me, an advisor personally, and also an inspiration. But let's get to the main focus of this interview today. It's TK Gray. How are you? And welcome.
Kevin, I'm so happy to be here and so happy to be chatting with you. I love chatting with you. I love what you've been doing. And God bless your show. Good for
Well,
you.
thank you so much. Thank you so. And so you're calming. Well, obviously, we're going to talk about the practice that you have, and you calm people down for a living. So, but it took some time to learn that calming technique and that thing. So, what's your life like? Let's talk about your life. Where'd you start it? How,
Woo.
were you born? Were you born normal? Were you a Martian? Where are you from? All that kind of stuff. Let's hear about TK Gray. And listen, I'm just going to say, like, if you don't see me on the screen with you, it's because I'm just watching you. You'll be on the screen by yourself. Don't get nervous. And we're live right now doing the recording. That's how I do it on a
Okay,
podcast. Talk
perfect.
about you. Where'd you begin? Where'd you start off life, TK Gray?
Well, we're all stardust, right? I think if we really get down to it, and we live on a spinning rock that floats in the middle of space. And I think that knowing that always helped me, right? Like, if that's possible, what else is possible? And there were lots of times in my life where things just did not go right. And there's a lot of things that are available on my website, but growing up in Connecticut, my mom was a single parent. She was amazing. She was never home. So really just kind of growing up uh, where most of our neighbors are cows, right? I mean, it's Voluntown, it's Connecticut, it's so rural. And we didn't really settle any place, meaning we moved a lot when I was in like elementary school. So by the time I landed in like the Griswold Voluntown area, it was junior high into high school. And by then, I mean, my PTSD was already really, really bad. I didn't know. Nobody knew. I think that, we're just learning and getting into how PTSD individually works in the body because nanotechnology's proven now that it's not a mental illness. PTSD is a loop. It's the brain replaying itself over and over again, looking for a different response. It's its job, right? So you have your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic system. So for me, with my anxiety, because I know he really kind of wanted me to talk a lot about like where I came from. But the biggest thing for me was I needed to find some balance, and I was completely suicidal. And that was really hard because I was super successful. By the time I hit my 20s, I was producing events for Donald Trump. I produced Miss Trump Style and Miss Trump Style International. I was hanging with people who their names. And it was a beautiful life, but I was suffering. My relationships were suffering. I didn't trust people. I was unfortunately involved with childhood sexual abuse by one of my mom's boyfriends, to which I believe to this day, like she really doesn't know about it. We talked about it a little bit. She didn't want to have that conversation with me. But throughout all of the things of knowing, right? We live on a floating rock that spins in the middle of space. It's possible. I have to be, as a child of God, like there has to be a way for me to feel better about my life and to help other people. And I think, Kevin, that's when you and I really started talking to each other a little while back. It's really just about turning it inward and making sure that you're good now because you can't help even what happened yesterday, right?
So true. So true. So true.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
going
let's
through
let me ask you this, doctor. That you mentioned some things in your life in the beginning. Uh, the childhood trauma. Obviously, the one thing that you mentioned out of this beginning of introducing yourself was that molestation, and you and I talked about that. I had my own. Do you think do you think molestation is more prevalent than people talk about in this country, in the world? Do you think that's
Yes.
something that a lot of people hide? And I want to focus on everything about you, but this is a big part of who you are, right? Is it fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so
Absolutely. And you know what? I've actually worked with people who have been on both sides of the spectrum now, right? From whether they're the pedophile or whether they're the victim.
wait,
Um,
you work with the victimizers as well. You do that in
of
your practice.
course,
You actually wow.
absolutely.
Okay,
I work with
awesome.
people. I work with humans. If
Hmm.
you want to feel better, God has given us the opportunity. Like your body, there are ways that I've learned, whether it be neurokinesis, breathing, Tai Chi is really amazing. There's a lot of different kinds of modalities that you can really get into that are helpful. And if you find yourself feeling mad or sad or bad, um, that's where I really focus, right? It's the baseline of the body. It's the chemicals, basically, right? Kevin, first and foremost, so proud of you for not drinking. I
Thank you.
know that's a huge thing for you.
Hmm.
I've seen you've been posting it up and you're doing the thing, and I'm so proud of you. And I hope that you are an example to anyone who really wants to feel better, right?
Thank you.
Drinking's only the beginning though, right? You and I have talked about this. It's
Hmm.
more than that. The reason that we drink is usually a chemical imbalance. We feel bad or sad. And then the alcohol or whatever other thing that you decide to anesthetize yourself with, right? You put yourself in a hole. You don't have to think about it. I did it for many years. It was easier to like basically be a character. When
Hmm.
I stood on a Trump stage in my high heels, in my gown, feeling like I didn't deserve to be there, but I was
Hmm.
in charge of the whole thing,
Hmm.
right? And thinking about all the little things that added up to me feeling some sort of way, right? So, and Mr. Trump was always against my drinking,
Hmm.
with what happened with
Yeah,
his
they say he
brother.
doesn't drink, right? I mean,
He
I've
does
heard
not
so many
drink.
things. Yeah.
No,
You
no,
got the
he
no.
does
So
not drink.
I don't want to make this about Trump right now, but I do have questions about that because that's an
Well,
interesting
that's a
experience.
totally different show, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a totally different show, but I mean, I think
Yeah, but
that's
no,
an.
he does not drink.
Did you do drugs and alcohol as a kid? Did you experience with any of that?
Not until I was in my 20s. In my
Okay.
20s, I experienced more with ecstasy and cocaine. I mean, they were
Mhm.
super available back then too. That was more than 20 years ago, right? And
Right.
again, it was the same thing. It was like I could be this person who didn't care that I was worried that somebody was going to rape me, honestly, right?
Mhm.
Or hit
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
or manipulate my mind to the point where I didn't know who I was and like I didn't have the tools to take care of myself, right? So when you really look at a life, and I put no blame on anyone, right? But with my daughter, I am 100%, I understand what she's doing, right? I spend
Yeah.
time with her. I help her with her homework because I understand the importance of making sure that I know what's going on with her. That didn't happen with me.
Mhm.
Granted, it was a different time, and my mother was wonderful, but she worked all the time, and she was reliant on the men that she dated, and many of them did live with us, and they weren't always wonderful. Some were great, and then after I moved out of the house, I found out the boyfriend that my mom lived with molested my little sister,
Oh
you know?
wow. Wow.
So it's like that
Did you
generational.
have any guilt? Did you have any guilt or anything like maybe if you had done something about it, you would have maybe protected her, or did you feel any of that, or did you put it where it needed to be? Because it's really not your fault. I get it. I'm just asking a question.
So while it's
I'm sorry if that's a
no,
bad
no, no,
question. Maybe I shouldn't have
no,
asked that.
no, it affected my relationship with my sister
Okay.
wholly. She told me that. She told me at one point that she hated me,
Because you
right?
could have
So
stopped it.
like I could have stopped it. And at the time when it started, it was 1995. So I was Miss Connecticut Teen USA. I was
Oh.
competing at Miss Teen USA in Kansas. I was all over the place, right? I was on TV in parades, all of the things, And my sister, while she came, sometimes she didn't come all the time.
Mhm.
So she equates my pageant experience to her physical experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, However, again, you're talking about I was 14, I'm 45 now,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
30 years ago.
my 6-year-old is
Mhm.
actually what changed everything for my
Okay.
sister and I.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
she has a relationship with my kid like you would not even believe,
Awesome.
and, like, it's, like, all the pain we had to go through and even the conversations that we had to go through to be okay,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
'Cause there's some stuff that I mean, it's ugly when you get into it, and you had asked me before, there's not a woman I've met that hasn't had some sort of negative experience,
With
whether it be
sexual, like,
yeah,
assault or whatever,
assault
yeah.
or even just verbal, right?
Right,
If
right.
you're with a guy and you don't want to fill in the blank, whatever he wants to do, oh, and then the rumors start, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And, like, that's the whole other thing, and with
Mhm.
social media, while, again, like you say, it can be amazing and positive, it can also be really negative because you don't always know what the truth is.
So true. And it's so it's interesting. As you're talking, I'm thinking about your story, and I'm also associating this is what this kind of interactive conversation is about. It's like where we all create this sort of, well, what about me? Did this happen to me, or have I seen that? And I've talked in detail to you about my own issues that I've taken with myself, like where I know that I've been in positions and I've taken advantage of women because of wanting something as that guy, that person out there. And I've never gone over the board or whatever. I'm not here to defend that, but I'm saying I know that I acknowledge that I've been that guy in some way, some form in the last, my lifetime, up until about 2 years, or definitely up until 2 years ago when I was saved by Jesus. So I feel that this is an opportunity though for us to get into something about what shaped you at 14, 15, 16, 18 to want to leave Connecticut. You're obviously competing, right? And you're like, why are you running away? I'm just asking if that's the case or not. Maybe it isn't. And what was your thought process at that age? Like, you think you're going to be a rock star or a Hollywood celebrity? What were you thinking when you left Little Voluntown, Connecticut?
I was gonna sing on Broadway.
Oh, wow, really? Okay.
Absolutely,
Can you sing and
yes.
close this show out for us later on? You'll do a little song before we end.
Ugh, I don't know about all that now.
All right.
That's sort of for another time.
Okay. All right.
Um
Tell your story though. I mean, what were you thinking if you leave Connecticut and you get on the journey because you brought up the Donald Trump situation, and
Mhm.
that shapes your businesses that you've been involved with over the years have shaped who you are today. But what were you
Absolutely.
thinking when you left Connecticut, and talk us through that journey to about where you I guess where you found out that you were really broken in that environment that sort of found yourself in.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, for me, it was all about getting out. It was it was just I didn't like, the choices that I saw the people around me making. I didn't like seeing people drunk all the time, and driving and, multiple friends that I've had, getting into car accidents and things like that, and it's just I had this experience where I just felt like if I didn't get out, I was gonna die, right? So suicide is something that I work with a lot of people who are suicidal. I spent most of my life suicidal. I'm also realizing now as I'm coming out of it that it's generational in my family. My mother attempted suicide a few weeks ago, and it's like every couple of years, my entire life. So being able to have the tools to step outside of that and see really, like, honestly, none of it's important, but everything's valuable to the experience. It's valuable to who you are and the skill set that you have, right? So if I'm talking to Kevin and I know that Kevin, fill in the blank, I want to encourage Kevin to do those things provided that they are positive, right? And our mindset and the way that we think, the way that we can change that to always be asking for what we want. It's consistent prayer,
So
like
how does a young age though, what because okay, suicidal, that's a whole other topic that we're going to
whole
get
other
deep
thing.
into, and we're going to talk about on another because I've shared my own suicidal issues. Mental health has been a great challenge in my life, and overcoming mental health has been because of people like yourself and that community, and we need to share that story. But how do you go again from Little Voluntown, Connecticut, two brothers watching everyone drive back and forth, the two brothers drunk every weekend and night?
Yeah.
I know you know.
Yep.
and I've driven there many a times drunk and home on my motorcycle to boot. But how
I
do you
did
go from
too.
there to Donald Trump's business? Like, get me there. Okay, let's fast forward and just get on the jet plane. How do you end up working for Donald Trump? Your experiences in between that, did you just forget about all the trauma and just shut it off for a while until you got to that position and then started to realize when you were exposed? Just kind of wondering.
So by the time I was 20, I had already discovered ecstasy and moved to Las Vegas. And that's kind of what changed everything for me. So I had worked at Foxwoods Casino in the cashiering department, and I was super blessed to be offered a job at the Paris, Las Vegas, when it opened in 1999. And it was such a great gig. I loved it. I got to sing, I got to serve, I learned a lot. I mean, and we're talking about like, putting a life together, right? So you imagine at this point, I'm 20 years old. Really, the only thing that I know is school and like cashiering at Foxwoods, right? And how to shut off how much I'm suffering and how much I literally just wanted to die all the time. But I just kept going. And at this point, I did not have God. God was not a part of my life. My mom kind of shut it off. She had divorced my dad after my sister was born. They refused to baptize my sister. So she was just like, no more church. So that was just it for us. Um, and so by the time, I'm 20, I'm in Vegas, I'm partying on the weekends, hanging out with celebrities, going to like fancy nightclubs and stuff like that. And VIP wherever I wanted to go, as much money as I wanted to spend, to just really going home at the end of the day and passing out, to getting up and doing it the next day, and sometimes 2 or 3 days at a time, depending on what I had going on. Traveling, working, and being like, by the time I got to, I was at a nightclub called Dre's. It's still open. Fantastic club. Victor Dre's the owner. He was a producer back in the day. Great, great man. Oh my gosh, I totally just lost my train of thought, Kevin.
That's
I'm
okay.
so
You were at Dre's. You're hard party. You're partying at Dre's. I'm listening to this
Yes,
like
yes, yes. Thank you.
I'm a 20-year-old female
My
in
brain's
Vegas.
like, you have a crossroads right
Ecstasy,
now.
drinking drunk every
Yes,
night. I'm with you right now. I'm in the
yes,
moment. Go
yes.
ahead. Keep going.
So this gal walks up to me and she just goes, "You're gorgeous." She's like, "My boss wants to meet you."
Mhm.
And we're in the VIP area. And I was like, okay, cool. So we went to the VIP area, and sure enough, I met a fella named Roy Hahn. He's the publisher of, it was called The One magazine.
Mhm.
Funny enough, I had a feeling we were going to be talking about it today. So I pulled these out. These are the magazines I worked for years ago.
Oh, wow.
Brooke
Okay.
Burke on the cover of this one,
Yeah.
Brittany on the cover of this one. I'm in both
Wow.
magazines. You can see everything on my website.
Oh, wow.
But they made me a feature model first.
Mhm.
And then he found out about my pageant experience, and he was like, "Can you produce?" They had somebody who was supposed to come in for Miss Trump Style that didn't. And I was so excited. But yeah, I was producing my first event, and I had competed in several events. I knew what to
Mhm.
do, and we had a tabulator that handled the judging and stuff like that. So it
Mhm.
was a really good time. They invited me to come back, and I did the international pageant as well.
Mhm.
I ended up meeting, of course, I met Mr. Trump a bunch of times. I've met his kids. His son Don and I probably got to be the closest of friends. But yeah, I think in all things, and people always ask me, so I'll put it right out there. I never experienced anything negative from Mr. Trump himself.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that you would say that. And again, I think this whole Trump conversation. Let's do that again. And I'm not
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to, but I think your story is
Well,
so
I just want
interesting.
to put it out in the
Yeah, yeah.
into the
No, I
ether,
appreciate,
you know
I
what I
appreciate you
mean?
doing that because
Yeah,
everyone is going to say, ooh, they'll type on the, be like, whatever, whatever, and just relax everyone and listen
yeah.
to the story. So let me ask you this. Did you ever feel like you're pretty was good or bad? Like, did you okay, so you said it, you're pretty, right? Like, let me just say from my perspective, I'm not a pretty girl, but I'm a pretty guy. And I know how to use my flirty prettiness to get what I wanted. Did you ever
Yeah.
get into that moment, like, and you realize, wow, I'm using this to get that kind of thing? Did you ever kind of experience that?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that specific question because my mother would always introduce us and she would say that I was the pretty one and my sister Autumn was the smart one and my sister DJ was the funny one. So I think I really did focus on being pretty and, even the pageants, right? When I first told my mom, "Hey, I want to do this," she looked at me and laughed and she told me, "You are never going to win." And I said, "Well, why?" And her response was, "Because I'm not anybody, we can't, and we can't afford it." I said, "Well, if I can raise the money, will you let me do it?" And she said, "Yeah." So I did, and this is my 13-year-old self because I competed twice before I won. I made top 10 or 15, whatever it was the first year. I had this crazy fuchsia sequin dress with like these big puffy things, right?
Yeah, that
1990.
was 90s, right? The 90s look, yeah.
It's
Was your hair
crazy.
sprayed? Was your hair sprayed up like this too, like a big old
My hair
90s
is
video?
No, my hair is straight, straight, straight.
Oh,
So it was
so you were
always long. Yeah, it was always long. I'd wear it down or whatever.
because the girls back then were wearing that hair like all sprayed up and still,
Oh my gosh. Yep.
transitioning from the 80s into the 90s. It was crazy. I look back at the pictures. So,
Aquanet.
you're doing this when your mom, and you said something earlier too. And this is again, I'm going to just give a lot of titles for a lot of conversations you and I are going to have. But the poor person's attitude that you were getting from your family, I got that from my family. I talk often about it. It's like you're never going to be. You're not good enough. You're poor. You're never going to be. You can never succeed. And that's the things that I think so many young people get from those
Mhm.
sad environments that they're living in broken families. So
Yeah.
you realize one day you're in Vegas, you go out to Vegas, you're packed your bags, you're out at night, you pop an ecstasy, your words, not mine. You're enjoying the environment. You're doing what a 20-year-old probably should be doing safely, hopefully. Did you ever feel like, man, I'm going down the wrong path early on, or did it take a while for you to learn like Vegas lifestyle and all that stuff, or because it sounds like it was
I was
fast,
so
like a Motley
functional.
Crue video, right? It almost sounds like a Motley Crue
Yeah.
video.
Yeah. You know what though? I was so functional with all of it that and I'm a reductionist too. So I would literally plan, okay, if I have to be here at this time and do the thing, right? I was so in control of my addiction that I thought it was handled, right? And nobody, if you didn't know, you didn't know. If you participated, you knew. But outside of that, like I had a closed group of friends. And of course, back then, social media wasn't a thing. So it's like, we'd be hanging out doing whatever, and people weren't taking pictures. It wouldn't be like it is today. You know what I mean? Um, but I kept feeling like it wasn't helping, right? So for a few years, it felt like it was helping. It felt like I could kind of get away for a little while and have fun and go dance. I loved to just go and dance and listen to the music, feel the music, meet people, meet new people. I like talking to people. And I mean, I was always, because of the way that I grew up, I was always, always safe. I always made sure I had security with me, or a friend, or someone was keeping an eye on me. If I was going to be out, otherwise, I just stayed home. I did what I wanted to do, at my house. But I was all over the place, and I would wake up sometimes and forget where I was.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been.
I
Who,
woke
who
up.
who hasn't been there? I mean, I've woken up in commuter parking lots and had half my clothes on and one side, and I don't know what happened, but I do know this, that I didn't remember a lot of the stuff, and alcohol was typically the reason why. Was alcohol the biggest hindrance in your life? You think mostly alcohol, as far as like an addict or the problem, or was it the other ecstasy? Because you said you didn't have an alcohol problem, but alcohol is always a part of that environment, right? Like, kind
So
of.
the weird thing about me and alcohol is it puts me to sleep.
Oh,
I
cool.
just
All
go
right.
like, I have 2 glasses of wine and I'm out.
Oh, good.
You know what I mean?
Good. Right. So
Um,
alcohol is not a problem for you. Like, I mean, it's not, and I'm
well,
trying to
that
make,
is a problem though, right?
okay. All right.
Like,
I guess if you're
even
sleeping, yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, being in a social setting and having to leave because I've had a glass or 2 of wine or
Mm, mm-hmm,
whatever,
mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
feels like a problem to me. It
Yeah, I
so
agree.
it's not the amount of alcohol that I drank, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
But I wanna add this caveat, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The more I should say the less I felt I needed to run from myself, the less I needed anything else to help me feel normal.
Okay.
You
All
know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and that comes from maturity, right? I mean, that comes from the experience of feeling that the ups and downs of sadness. I think you start to build that, right? Or did you
Yeah,
have
I
it?
think it's also healing your personal trauma, you
Mm,
know? Like, you and I have talked about, you have to change the message that's going to your brain,
mm,
and it's super easy to do,
mhm,
right? But most people just don't even know it's an option, and they
mm,
don't think about it as anything, right?
right.
They'll go to a therapist, they'll talk about their problems. Okay,
Mhm,
so baseline of the body. And I think that's why we started talking about alcohol, because the body creates chemicals. It creates adrenaline, it creates cortisol, it creates dopamine, endorphins, a variety of different things that do a variety of different things. Right. And I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I love my adrenaline rush. I love my adrenaline rush. But what happens if you don't eliminate that toxin from the body is it builds up. So, since we're from the East Coast, I like to think about an attic. You know, if you have an attic that's got a lot of spiders and you go up there, you want to clean up that attic, those spider things, they're sticky, right? And it's the same thing with your brain. When you've had a lifetime of trauma, and I call it trauma math because it's this situation plus this situation plus this situation plus, and then you compound it over years, right? And there's a lot of people who get to our age, like 45, 50, and they're like, I hate life. They go to work, they make money, they might have a spouse, they may be kind to their spouse, but maybe they're not. They just don't really talk to anybody. You know, they're going through the motions of not feeling well. And that's like a prison, I think. And if I'm being honest, it's how I felt my entire life. And I could change what was around me, but it wasn't until I was like, shoot, I need to change myself. So, what do I need for myself? And that's
mhm,
when I found the neurokinesis. I started figuring out how to eliminate like the negative reactions, right? Because if you and I are having a conversation and you say something to me and I scream at you,
mhm,
it, it's probably 10% what you said and 90% something else. So that
mhm,
90% something else, that's the part that sits and it stews and it creates the reactions that we don't want in our life. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
that guilt too, you know?
Did anyone tell you to think of like, so for example, just so I'm like a listener now, I'm like a viewer here watching the show, and what you're saying to me is you developed this skill through your experiences. You started to realize, and you started doing some research, I'm assuming, and then that research provided you with answers to some probably questions you never had answers to, and then you started. Now, at what age was that, TK? Because that's important to know. Like, where did you start working on this?
2008. 2008 with like business coaching
Well,
coaches.
no, and more like think about it like this. Like, when did you start to realize that this was going to be like your life? You were leaving all that other stuff. In other words, it set in and it was like the aha
Oh,
moment. Like, wow, I get it now.
2017.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, cool. All right,
2017. My cat, I don't know if you can hear her. She wants to come in. Give me 1 second.
yeah, let you get it. Sure.
Come on. Come on,
Is your cat's name Mama?
Mama. No, it's Leah.
Oh, I heard you say Mama, so Leah.
This
Okay,
is
nice to meet you, Leah. Hi, Leah.
Leah was a stray and in Phoenix, and she
Okay,
got hurt, and I took care of her, and she's been with me ever since. She's my lap cat.
awesome.
So to answer your question, it was 2017. It was
Mhm,
I was pregnant with my daughter, so it was probably March or April of that. It must have been April. Um, I had been married for a month, and my marriage was over, and I was pregnant, and we were still
wow.
living together. He had given me a high five, but like the communication just wasn't there.
Mhm,
And what I realized standing in the moment was that as I had been working on myself, he hadn't. right?
Mhm,
So as I'm working on my trauma, realizing how much our traumas complemented each other
mhm.
when we first got together, and we had a history of being friends for a long time. And yeah, it was just a lot. So I'm grateful for the space, that he had in my life. I'm super happy that I have my daughter. She's my world. And everything that I do really is just to make sure that I can prolong my life to make hers better.
So 2017 was, I'm not really good at math, but that was a while after you were in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So there's a lot in between there. You talk about Arizona with, getting your
Oh,
cat and all
yeah, but
that
I
stuff.
mean, so I lived, after Trump. So I left Trump after,
Wait. I could. You left Trump. You say that again, and I will tag that and just put it out in the airway. I left Trump. We can just tag that, and we'll get a lot of feedback when you say. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
okay.
Explain.
Yeah, so I left Trump when the president of the Five-Star Diamond Award told me to go home to my mommy because I wouldn't sit on his lap. So that was definitely not where, and like in the years that I had been adjacent to Trump and Trump events, had never had anyone treat me like that. And that was all I really needed. And it was just at that point where I was just oversaturated with it. So I took a sabbatical. I lived in Mexico for a little while, right on the beach. I would surf all the time. And then my friend Fabian Vincent, who is the former president of Nevada State Bank, got in touch with me and he said, "Hey, I just bought the rights to an energy drink in the Caribbean and Venezuela, and I want you to be my sales and marketing director. You want to move to the Caribbean?" I said, "Okay."
All right, so then you move. So, but guys, just if you're listening, you're taking notes here. Voluntown, Connecticut is the largest open space in all of Connecticut. There's nothing there but cows and some alcoholics and a few other good people in churches. And then TK goes from there to get to Vegas to Mexico, and now you're going over and you're doing this international thing, which your
Yes,
mom told you couldn't even win a pageant, right? So this has got to be
yes,
empowering to a single woman who
yes.
is out on her own.
Yes. Yes, and then also full disclosure, my mom was 100% about it once I won. You know what I mean? Then she was like, "Oh wait, she can do this," Like the whole thing. She was all for it. And it was fun. We had a really good time and it did get me to where I wanted to be, but it was interesting. It's so wild the different things that happen in a life. So, Fabian, when I'm down in Trinidad, we had 10 international models from all over the world. We called them the pit girls. We had a cute outfit for them that wore collars, and we took them to parties, and they put alcohol in the pit bowl, the energy drink. And Fabian's partner was Dr. Conrad Murray. And I don't know if you recognize Conrad's name, but he was involved with the death of Michael Jackson, spent some time in prison. Eventually, he's exonerated. He can't practice medicine in the United States, from what I understand, but he is practicing out in Trinidad. And the last I heard, he's opening this gigantic university down there, which will be really beneficial for the people who work there.
So time out again. We're going to do this. I'm going to put the flag up. Okay. Because if we're going to tag names along this way, you should have warned Mark so we could tag him into this production. So we have Michael Jackson's physician who gave him the actual cocktail that somehow was involved. I don't want to make any statements I could be sued for. And you also are
Right,
working with
right.
Pitbull. Was it Pitbull's product that you were promoting? Was it the
Pitbull
Pitbull?
energy drink.
The
Yeah,
Pitbull. My
yeah.
guy, Mr. 360.
It was owned by Roscoe though at the time, from
It
Roscoe's
doesn't matter.
Chicken
It's
and
Pitbull.
Waffles.
He's bald. He's a bald guy. Hello, he's my guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
but Pitbull, the actual Pitbull, he came much later, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
It's just crazy
so
how
yeah,
many
but
names
it
you're tagging. I
was
mean, think about it
yeah.
in your life. How many people you've come in touch with that
Oh,
it's amazing. You're telling
yeah,
a story. Your life story is like so many hills and valleys and incredible.
yeah. And the people I've dated as well,
Well, let's get into that. That's a
have
whole nother
been
show, TK. We might want to do that for an exclusive. Who did TK
yeah, no, no,
date?
no. I don't want to start listing off names
Yeah.
and
No,
seeing
right, I'm
like
just seeing. I'm
whatever.
kidding.
No, it's not. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. I feel like now, being the
Mhm.
person that I am,
Mm,
I was running away the entire time. I was
mm,
looking for something again, right? But I wasn't looking inside myself. I was collecting people. I was collecting experiences, I was trying new things. I went to Burning Man. I listened to people talk and eventually I found God and everything just clicked for me. I was like, "Whoa. Okay. I'm not alone." Right? And I never have to be alone, and that it was that piece that was missing. But it was more than just God because finding God gifted me myself, and it gave me that opportunity to give everything else to my heavenly Father. I grew up without my dad, right? I didn't know what it was like to have a father. But I did have a man tell me once, "You know what your problem is? You didn't have a dad. You didn't have
mhm,
someone to keep you in check or, like, check the boxes for you." And whether that's right or wrong, that was my experience,
mhm. It's
So
interesting, isn't it always that it's always that experience where you have these other people that say these things to you. This is when I'm hearing you speak, through my own experience that that I've shared with you. Um, I found the same thing. When people would tell me that, it would be sinking in. It would actually deter me from success. I would let them affect me.
yes.
I posted something today. You like to, don't let other people's opinions, sway you.
You
Don't. I
you
mean,
you give away your power.
thank you. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But if you don't know, you don't know. That's
Right.
the thing
Right.
about all of this, right?
Right.
There could be somebody sitting there right now that's just like, "My life is really good, but you know what? I feel some sort of way. I
Mhm.
just don't feel happy. I wish blah, 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 blah." Whatever the thing. And I shouldn't say blah, blah, blah because it's all valid and important. Each of us is the center of our own universe. We will never, like, you and I could have the same experience, Kevin, and remember it completely differently.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's the beauty of life, but also it's important to understand when you're communicating with other people, right? Because how many of us in a relationship have that experience we just talked about, right? And then I'm talking to you about it later and you get it wrong in my mind, and now I'm mad at you.
Right. Right.
It
No,
That's
it's right.
not
It's right. It's
right.
that it's such it's interesting because I think we even know it during the time because I think humans are like we're given some supernatural gifts. I think of uh, we can come up with some good answers in our own heads if we allow ourselves to do it. But I feel like we fight it because of all these other issues that we carry in that bag of life with us. But when it's happening, it's like bang, it can attack you, and you can be like, oh, I'm gonna let that affect me. When all you got to do is say, you're not coming in, man. You're not out. You're not
Not
entering
my
this
circus.
space.
Yep,
Right. And I
yep.
know
I
you're gonna have
literally
some
say that out loud.
you're gonna have definitions that are gonna be like very technically, said. I don't know what they are, but I just know stay out of my space kind of way, right? And like so how do you do this? How do you transition from a really young, energetic, exciting, from nowhere, I don't want to say nowhere, but a little pimple town of Connecticut, all the way out through these experiences. And how do you stay humble? I know. I mean, in that whole journey, where's the humbleness? Were you humble? Did you learn some lessons of humility?
I think that especially in school, like, if you talk to the people I went to school with, they would say I was not a humble person. I definitely wanted I think my whole life I was just really searching for that one person that would accept me. And when I accepted people, I loved them so hard, I kept my people really, really close. Um, and again, now giving myself and everyone else the space to just be themselves, right? Like, I can serve if I can hear. If I'm focused on somebody reacting to me, I'm maybe manifesting, but it's not paying attention. It's not giving the person the energy. And certainly, if it's somebody who needs support, it's almost putting up a wall. Because, like you said, we each have our things, like we have our given gifts. Some people are empaths, they're sympaths. I know some psychics that are amazing,
Mhm.
and it's wild to see the gifts that we have and think about again, right? floating rock spins in the middle of space. We're seeing new things in telescopes. I love studying things like the 12th planet, Zachariah Stitchin, right? The additional planet that's supposed to be here. That book talks about mining gold. It talks about this other planet. It talks about how humans went from basically not having anything, right? We could barely walk to within the scope of like 100 years or something like that. Now we have fire, the wheel, we're walking, we're fighting each other, we're building stuff. You know, this book presupposes that we do have alien DNA. I don't know.
So how do you wrangle? Let me ask this, because there's going to be some curiosity here. A lot of the listeners, the Prayed Up Network, the Be Better podcast, me, Kevin Allen here, and my Christian walk, and you're a Christian as well. We share these journeys together.
Yes.
How do you wrangle with some of the people that, the Christian community that doesn't want to hear about any of this other stuff? They just want to hear one conversation. And I'm not being disrespectful anyway. I want to hear everybody. That's my
Never.
point. But yeah,
Never.
what's your thoughts on that?
I believe that God, as long as we have a belief, and we believe, he believes in us. I know that sounds kind of weird. I'm not a big scripture person. I am big on the lessons. I like to read the book, but I always read it with an open mind of how many times has this been edited? How many times has it been changed? There's lots of background that Constantine, changed the Bible years and years ago. We don't know what's true. What I do know is I'm here to serve. I believe in God. I believe in the higher power. And I believe that he puts me where I need to be. And that's how I met you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's interesting because I feel like you and I have a lot in common. And I think in a sense of, I struggle with reading. I'm very public about my dyslexia. I'm very public about my skill set for being able to read or write has always struggled. But I comprehend better than the average. I know where I am on the, if it's labels and we need to have dyslexia, or, if it's whatever those labels we want to throw out there. But I also think, like, just talking in the positive is what God and Jesus, like, Jesus is my example. I think I want to follow. And so I wonder for you, is Jesus important, like the way he is depicted in the Bible? Is that something you look to, or listen to the stories?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I
I
feel
knew
like,
that, TK.
yeah,
I want to ask,
no, no,
because somebody's out there
it's
right now going, oh, they're not happy, and I want them to understand this is nothing but good,
the
right?
the emotions that are coming up for me are so positive. But yes, I have God and Jesus with me all the time. If I ask a question, I'll get a response, and some people don't pay attention to those things. Like, the little the pricklies you get on your skin, right? Or if you're outside and you ask a question and then all of a sudden the wind blows. Um, I believe, right? Like all the additional scriptures that they're finding as well. It's referenced frequently in movies and pop culture. Dogma is a really good one for it. There's a Patricia Arquette movie that's escaping me right now that was amazing as well, right? And then in that, she talks about the book of Mary Magdalene, I think, right? Break a rock or pick a rock and I am there, break a stone and I'm getting it totally wrong.
That's okay.
But you understand what I'm saying, right?
Mark, the producer, will look it up and he'll put it on there. He'll fix it for us and attach it. So
perfect. That's amazing. But at the end of the day, Jesus didn't preach religion, right? He talks about love.
Mhm.
And we are love.
Yes.
My mentor Barbara told me the only truth in life is love. Everything else can be changed. And that I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. I wrote it on my whiteboard and I had it there for years. And I love that saying, we to be love. If I'm walking down the street and I see someone who's struggling, I'm going to sit down and talk to them. Very much like Jesus.
Do you just
not
go,
that I'm comparing myself to Jesus. I am not.
No,
What I'm saying?
But it's an example, like
Here's
for me
the
too.
path.
You walk up to somebody
Yeah.
and you'll be like, hey, this person might need something. You give it to them. You feel that inspiration. You just do that.
Absolutely. For me, it usually works the opposite though. I'll be
Hmm.
sitting and doing something, and I've literally had people come up to me and tap me and say, I don't, I'm sorry. Can I talk to you? I needed somebody to talk to. I lived in Manhattan, New York City for a little while. I used to read in the park. I ended up stopping reading in the park every time I would go to read. Someone would sit down and just start chatting. I ended up with a date with a New York City police officer that way, which was kind of crazy. But within our path and our space, again, if you can hear, you can serve, right? So if you're feeling some sort of way, right? I know if my hands start to shake and I'm feeling anxious or whatever, the chemicals in my brain are building up. What a lot of people do is they focus on the feeling and that intensifies the feeling, right? But if you learn to focus on the neurokinesis, what that does is it gives you an anxiety replacement, basically. It gives you something to do, right? It gets you out of your thoughts. Out of your thoughts means you're not creating those negative chemicals. And then we always add laughter to the end. So if you're feeling some sort of way right now, just laugh. 2 minutes, once an hour for the next couple of days. See how you feel. It brings back your endorphins. There are techniques that will bring down adrenaline and cortisol. Cortisol helps us gain weight. Dopamine. A lot of people get addicted to their animals. They're not addicted to the animal, they're addicted to the dopamine. And a lot of people who lose an animal will frequently commit suicide.
Mm.
Not They don't realize it, but they're not getting that dopamine from petting the animal anymore. Now the
Mhm.
animal's not here. Now they don't have that dopamine. They're not doing anything else to support themselves at that base cellular level. Cause I mean, for most people listening to the show, they're probably hearing this for the first time. Like,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
sure they've heard about adrenaline, they've heard about cortisol, but like, who's ever gone and said, hey, I feel like poo. Here, let's actually look at your body,
Mhm.
right? Because
Mhm.
therapists, psychiatrists, they don't do that. They don't scan your brain first.
Mhm. Mhm.
Dr. Daniel Amen does. He's
Mhm.
amazing. Change your brain, change your life, will change your life.
Okay.
He'll do it, but it's $5,000, right? I think it's not covered by insurance, but
Mhm.
insurance will cover anxiety medications, 2 or 3 of them at a
Mhm.
time, right? 4 or
Mhm.
$500. You've got people, like a lot of people too, state healthcare, they can't keep a job. Their
Right.
PTSD is so bad.
Right.
They don't understand what's wrong, but they can't assimilate with other people. And it's in a constant reactive state, right? And every
Mhm.
time we get mad, I don't know if you guys know this, those chemicals stay in your body for 3 days.
Wow.
So if you have a car accident or you stub your toe, you get in a fight or whatever, that chemistry will stay in your body for 3 days. Now, if you don't know any better and the next day something else happens, it resets that clock and resets the clock and resets the clock. So that's where your PTSD comes from. Now you're in that loop. You can't get out of it. You don't know how.
Do,
And
do,
it's
do, do you think
basically
we get dope? Do you think we get the dopamine from relationships? Like, I've been
absolutely.
very open with my last relationship. My heart was broken. I mean, I'm open about it. It doesn't matter. It is out there. And I've gone through the journey of recovering. And, I go back to my divorce with my ex-wife, and I'm sure that I hurt her heart. And I mean, I feel so much now of all this, but I feel like during the process, I was so depressed because I couldn't, and all these great things are happening. And I've been sharing them with you, TK, and, trying to battle back. But I'm wondering how much of that would I have been able to control if I had maybe taken your advice a little earlier, maybe, and started to implement some of this.
That's a big question to ask. Um, I find when I'm dedicated to using my techniques, which is 3 minutes 3 times a day, um, I am 100% all the time. If I fall off for a day or 2, kinda like if you have a drink, right?
Mhm.
Um, you're off for a couple days and then you can get back on. So being a big question, the question I always have is, what is your dedication level to yourself? Because that is going to determine whether you're going to be successful or not. I'll
Mhm.
tell you what to do. I'll show you what to do. Matter of fact, I have a one page that's free on my website people can download. I also have a new program, the TK29. That's an entire workbook.
Oh, wow.
It comes with, I'll show you how to ring your personal bell. You get a focus stone. There's a bunch of swag that comes with it, right? So it's like the question you asked me is how much better would it have been?
Mhm.
The answer is you could have 100% every time you felt bad or sad, use the techniques instead, and you would have felt better in 72 hours. You would have it completely eliminated out of your body in 28 days because it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. It's an additional 7 days to imprint that habit on the body. So it'll take you a month
I'm
if you do it the right way. If you say
I'm sorry to hear you say that. I'm sorry to hear that said to me now, because I know the nights and the days that I went through during the process. I've shared it with
yeah,
you and some others. Many people, well, actually, it's crazy because I put myself out there publicly, as you know. I shared this journey with so many people that I feel like I brought people like yourself into my life. And so,
you
you know
did.
what? I'm not going to look backwards about why I didn't do this. I'm looking forward. I would like to do I would like to actually do a sit down with you where we actually do the actual. I'll shut up. I'll try, and I'll go through the process with you. And I would like to do that because listen. Every day I get up trying to be better.
Yes.
That's all. And so, I mean, I think this is something I want to try to do. What would you tell people that are curious right now? So we heard your whole story, and we didn't hear it all. We heard your life story, bits and pieces of
Cliff
it.
notes.
It's an incredible story. We could talk for hours about it, and I want to talk more, and we'll implement it into future podcasts. But I think one of the things that I'm taking right now is that we're talking about recovery, and the chance for somebody out there that's listening and watching this podcast, there is hope for you, right? And so
Yes.
you put together this plan. So I want to ask you before we kind of go into the where people can find you and how it can help you again. How did you develop the plan? Because I'm not just trying to be rude. You don't have any formal background. Is that correct?
That's
Which
correct.
is and people out there, by the way, elitists. I don't think a doctoral degree, even though I respect what you have, that is not a necessity for intelligence. By the way,
Yeah.
talk about how you got there. I think it's important to understand.
Oh, well, I think, I mean, I'm completely self-taught is what it comes down to. Um, between, Brendan Burchard, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, yeah, I love Dean. Um, Grant Cardone and his wife Elena are amazing, and I just kept like I finished virtual MBAs. I got my honorary Doctor of Divinity, right? And I'm a reverend through the church. But all of it was literally steps. And I'm sure that people listening understand, like, you've probably already taken a couple steps to make sure that your life is better. I just kept going. I'm a licensed insurance agent here in Florida. I just became a notary public. So, like, it's just for me, what can I learn? How can I be and how can I serve? So, everything that I've done with my education was to better myself. And the crazy thing, Kev, is when I won my first pageant, I was 14 years old, and my amazing director sat us down, Frank Sweeney, and he taught us to watch other people. He taught us to see what we like, see what we don't like, and then to basically to just change ourselves, right? So if there's something I see in someone else and I can compare it to myself and say, "Ooh, I don't like the way that feels when that person brings that energy my way. Oh, you know what? I don't want to do that either." And then create a plan for myself to eliminate that thing from my life without overthinking it. I think that's where people get to, right? And they also get to nothing works. They're convinced, right? Um, my very dear friend from Griswold High School just committed suicide a few weeks ago. Amazing human being. And you want to talk about feeling some sort of way. He had everything going for him, and he had me as a friend. But I stopped being a great friend. I stopped talking to him all the time. He was about to celebrate his 1-year wedding anniversary. And I just got the feeling after he got married, he needed some space, and now he's gone. And I can never change that. But you know what? Everyone that comes into my path, Kevin, I want to be able to hear them and to stand in a place of service to them and just be like, "Yo, you don't have to feel this way. You just don't."
Mhm.
It is a choice, and most people, I don't say that off the get-go, right? I
Mhm.
don't tell them it's a choice because that's telling them they're making the wrong choice.
Right.
They don't even know there's a choice. You have to first give them,
Mhm.
just it's about education and finding the space and loving yourself enough, right? And then when it comes to my techniques, it's you can't think. I mean, you can. That's what starts the process, right? Because you think about something negative, it's going to start the process of adrenaline and cortisol, right? But think about your nerves in your body, your nervous system. Those little teeny tiny ones, they go all through your body, right? They wrap around your hands, they go into your wrists. So for you guys at home, I'm going to give you this technique that will change everything. And I'm giving you guys this one because you can also use it with your kids. Okay, because the kids' brains aren't fully developed, you wouldn't want to use other parts of their body just because of the toxins. But what you can do is you can simply rub your knees. Okay, so if you imagine this is my knee, I'm just going to rub it in circles. Okay, you can do both at the same time. You can do one at a time. There's a little spot on the top of the knee that you can kind of get your finger into. But if you, from this day forward, replace, if you're feeling bad or if you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, just rub your knees. Same thing with your kids. Works with babies. I've been using it with my kid since she was born. Amazing, amazing technique. And
Can I stop
literally
you for
will
a
change
second?
everything.
I got to stop you. I'm sitting here, and my children can say this. Anyone that's been in my life can say this. Everybody that's been in my life. I'm rubbing my knee while you're talking, and I have a mark on my knee that's right above my kneecap, right? And it's like my thinking. My kids call it the think. I call it the thinking spot. I've been doing this, not even knowing why. This has been. I'm not even. This is not. This is not made up. This is. I don't know if you saw my face. We started saying that. I was like, and I know you've talked about these. I've heard the techniques, but I just started realizing because as you're talking, I'm rubbing my knee and I'm listening to you as you're saying it, and I'm like, okay, now I get it. Wow. And so so there's little techniques in our bodies that you learned over time through these
Mhm,
different studies, self-taught, but also from professionals in these spaces. You've put together this system that can simply in a pattern, right? Because it's got to be patterned and it has to be rehearsed and it has to be continuous, right? You can't walk away from these skills. Once you do, you got to start over in some sense. I'll let you tell the story, but these are things that people can do every day without having to pay a copay,
yep,
right? Without
yep,
having to, without, hopefully at some point not feeling the stress,
mhm.
depression, the sadness, and loneliness, and ways that they could correct that day, course correction like that, right? So talk about just simply if I'm going in and I'm calling you and I'm like a client, I'm like, hey, I want to come in. Tell me what in 30, tell me in an elevator speech what you're going to do for me. I'm struggling with alcohol, mental health. What can you do for me, TK?
Well, Kevin, what we're going to do is you and I will meet. We're going to eliminate the negative reactions in your body without disclosure. That means without talking about it, right? So when we talk about our bad and sad stories, it recreates the chemicals in your brain. So, for instance, a car accident that has high amounts of adrenaline and cortisol will always produce adrenaline and cortisol when discussed. So, if that makes sense to you, I mean, it's really just a point of helping you get to a place where you can hear yourself enough to replace the bad and sad feelings. How's that sound?
Well, it sounds very simple, and I am excited to say that I'm going to
It is
be
simple.
signing. Very simple, and so, but I know it's not simple because there's a process to it, and anything that is worth anything, it takes time and energy, and there's a cost to it.
Right.
So, the
Well,
the
Kevin,
cost to the cost of energy means our time, right? Because we're such a busy schedule. How much time does
yeah,
someone have to dedicate per day to your exercises?
3 minutes 3 times a day. So
That's
9
9
minutes.
minutes. I just
Yep.
added up faster than you. 9
Yep.
minutes. I got it. Yep.
Um, yeah. Oh, and no disclosure necessary, right? We
Mhm.
don't have to name names, but you know somebody who
Mhm.
had a
Oh yeah.
session with me recently.
Yep.
We met one time,
Mhm.
right? Um, what do you think of the changes in that
Am
person?
amazing changes personally. I have a long list of people that I'm lining up to talk to you. personally, because I've watched, and a lot of this is, and let's not like sugarcoat this whole thing, because I am in the midst of really exploring my coaching techniques in my special way that I coach people. Certainly not the same way you do, but us working together in that capacity, meaning finding some other people that are similar in these situations that can be, sort of, given something from you. I witnessed it. Amazing. Alcohol completely out of their life in less than 3 months. Focusing on everything financial. I've watched it turn around, and I've seen this because of your help, and my help, and really more importantly, self help by that individual. And you know
Yes.
what? Big
She did the
kudos.
work.
And right,
Yep,
and
she
you know
did the
what?
work.
You gotta work, man. There's no way you get it without work. And that was my point about how many times a day, 9 minutes a
Yeah.
day, and this and that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so the thing about I'm trained and have certifications as a trauma interventionist. So if you
Mhm.
know about interventionists, a lot of times they're surgeons. They're people who come in for a short period of time that have a specific job to do. I don't want to see my clients more than once or twice. Honestly, you shouldn't have to. The stuff that I teach is basic, but it's the foundation of everything else. And to my knowledge, no one else is doing it this way. So, one of the things that I was looking at, you had asked me about my experience before with the business coaching. I got so much from the business coaching, but again, I still had that stress. I still had that anxiety. I still
Mhm.
had that feeling that I wasn't good enough.
Mhm. Mhm.
This eliminated that from my life and comes back if I don't use my techniques. I am, that old thing. It's like, oh, I'm the president, but I'm also a client.
Yeah. Yeah.
150%.
The hair club.
The great thing though is I know what it feels like to suffer.
Yeah.
And I know what I feel like right now. And there's no
Right.
way I'm going backwards. You know what I
Right.
mean? And like
Right.
with my kid, Kev, she's 6, right?
Mhm.
And the other day, she was like, "Mommy, I feel sad." I was like, "Did you rub your knees?" And she
Mhm.
goes, "Yeah, but I think you need to do it." I'm like, "Okay,
Mhm.
cool, no problem."
Mhm.
Right? I checked
Mhm.
in with her. She had already done the thing that I taught her to do since she was a baby,
Amazing.
but she still needed mom.
Of course.
And sometimes it's true with all of us. We
Mhm.
all need somebody,
How, mu-
to
how
love.
how much how much are we broken in your experience working with, not I'm not talking about your daughter, but other people, yourself, myself, all these. How many of us are broken from that childhood experience we talked about earlier? How much of it is attributed to childhood versus other things that happen in your life?
Oof.
Is it 80%, 70%, 100%? What do you think?
Nature versus nurture. I think it depends on the relationship. There's some people who were raised so close to their parents, especially with us being from Grizzled, right? A lot of farm kids.
Hmm.
So you were raised on the farm, you stayed home, you milked the cows, you helped mom in the kitchen if you were a girl, or you did, whatever. Like there were defined roles.
Hmm.
And that kind of generational trauma, like a lot of times you stay on the farm.
Hmm.
Um, or the family business, it doesn't have to be a farm, it could be anything,
Right.
right? Insurance company, grocery store, whatever the thing is.
Hmm.
I think at the end of the day, though, it's important for each of us to feel the way that we want to feel. So that is the question that I always lead with when you come to a session with me is, okay, Kev, first tell me, how do you want to feel?
Hmm.
Okay. Now tell me what you feel like you've tried that hasn't worked for you.
Hmm.
Cool. We'll get that out of the way. And then we go through the literal systematics of the body, talk
Hmm.
about the nervous system. We talk about the danger of disclosure, right? I'm on a chat show with you. I disclosed all kinds of things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I can do that now. I can talk about sexual abuse now. I can talk about, seeing death and all of the things
Hmm.
because I got to the other side of it.
Hmm.
Before, I was a mess,
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
crying all the time, and I didn't let people see who I was.
Did you think that, because I want to ask a question, because there's a lot of women that watch this show, and they are hearing my journey, and I think women, especially in our age group, and you said ours, I mean, I'm older than you, but 45 to 55, I'll say.
Yep,
A lot of women face, the body challenges, right?
sure.
And I talk often about menopause versus menopause, and I'm creating this menopause concept, which I've read a little bit about, but it's a more of a mental creation in a response to the menopause partner. Do you think menopause is a big part of a lot of the issues in relationships, in both parties not understanding it, the male? and the female dealing with it. I mean, seriously, I don't understand it. I'm not, yeah.
It's a chemical imbalance in the body. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Well, all right,
100%.
I'm not you. I'm just asking questions. I'm trying to figure it
100%.
out.
No, 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 and yeah, see, like, you're reacting, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
I'm making a joke. That was a
Yeah. Yeah.
total
No,
joke,
I
but
get it.
it's
I know. I know.
the whole thing that we've been talking about, right?
Right. Right.
So, menopause, whatever, like, even within before that, right?
Mhm.
Women in a household, like
Yep.
say you have girls in a dorm, right? Their periods will start to align with each other just because that's what happens. It happens with men, right? If you hurt yourself,
We don't have periods.
no, but
Okay. Just making sure
chemical
you knew that.
imbalance,
I just want to make sure you knew that. I didn't know if you had gone through that part of the process. I'm just joking, Jen.
chemical imbalance, right?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be
Um,
funny because this is a
well,
tough
and
subject.
there's a lot of subjects we could talk about, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
a lot of young men that end up getting they're masturbating all the time, right?
Mhm.
Because they're overcompensating. Again, you're looking at the oxytocin and the dopamine and the endorphins.
Mhm.
And there are healthy ways to do it, and then there are unhealthy ways to do it. And then there are
What do you think the
healthy
maximum amount of masturbation per day is normal for a child?
oh gosh, I wouldn't even begin. I don't know. Could it be 3 minutes 3 times a day?
Okay. So it could be that
I
could be the
mean,
normal.
I'm that's not even a joke, right? It's
No, no, I'm
literally
not asking a joke
what
because it preoccupied me my entire life.
what
I'm
does the
being
body
honest.
need?
Right.
Like, that's where I focus, right? It's cellular level. So,
Mhm.
what does the body need? So,
Mhm.
if this well, since we're talking about boys in this
Yeah.
example, right? But
Yeah.
it could be girls too. You know, there's lots of girls who do as well. They end up getting into this pattern where they're doing this thing, and it might start off as masturbation. It might end up as, you know, being with a lot of people. It might end up
Mhm.
pregnant. It might end up with an STD. It might end up with whatever. You know, people get addicted to sex because they're addicted to the chemicals.
Do you think though in that case like because you know some of my when I started to explore what happened to me, and I admitted it with, like I told you, and people have heard me say it before, Stormy Daniels of all people on my show. What a combination, right? We're connecting the Trump deal, and
Mhm,
you know, I admit to Stormy that because she had said she was molested at 8 or 9, and for the first
mhm,
time, admitted that my babysitter molested me, female. I
mhm.
talk about it publicly, and I never realized until that day when I said it outwardly how that had created the path that I went on, and I never understood why the teachers were more attractive than the kickball at that point. You know what I mean? I wasn't looking at the kickball. I didn't care about being on the playground. I cared about
Yeah.
talking to adults, and that's true. That's a fact. So,
But you
you
were
know,
being conditioned by an adult
mm,
to have this relationship.
hmm
And, you know, seeing it from both sides, you know, what had to be going on in this person's life that she would choose that
hmm
over an adult. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Damn, it's true.
that's like a
I've
big
forgiven
thing.
that person long
Yeah,
ago because I don't think it was something that would be done again on either of our lives. But it's interesting how much of that happens. Is it exploration when you're exploring these things? But an 18 and an 8-year-old, there's really not you shouldn't be wanting to
right.
explore that. And that's the scientific side of behind the victim and the victimizer. I think that we
But
talk
I
about.
would ask, and yeah, you said it, right? Victim, victimizer. I think myself included, right?
Hmm
I was abused. I could be an abuser. I could choose to be a victimizer.
hmm
I would almost guarantee that whoever did this to you, something happened to them, you know,
hmm hmm
and it felt very normal and natural and whatever. And it's is we need to be okay
hmm
with who we are and how we feel about our life, right? That's the first thing. How do you want to feel? I ask myself the
hmm
same thing every day. And Wayne Dyer, when he was alive, right, he would put his feet on the floor and he would say thank you 3 times, right? And he would pray. But I do the same thing. Thank you for my life. Thank you for this day. Thank you, God, that I am still here and I can be upright. You know, my body's toast. I've got all kinds of issues with my spine. I had my spine fused, you know, but I beat the crap out of my body
hmm
until I didn't. And then I found the thing that makes me the happiest in the world, and that's God.
TKGrayOnline.com. You can find TK Gray. We'll go over all that, but I want to ask 2 or 3 questions before we close out. this amazing first interview. This is one of many, and I think there's a partnership brewing here. I don't know exactly where or when or how, but we're going to talk about that after the interview. TK, what would you tell the 14-year-old you now at your age? What advice would you give that 14-year-old?
Take care of you and save money. That would be my advice. Honestly, I wouldn't be the person that I am without the experiences that I went through. So I don't spend a lot of time going backwards. Um, but I do wish that I had somebody that sat me down with the finance thing and said, here's how. I mean, I would be a millionaire right now.
That's an amazing segue, and you'll hear me close out at the end. We have some sponsors on here. CashMap LLC is actually one of those apps. I can't wait to introduce you to Dennis. He's one of the sponsors here on the show, and that program that he's put together is an app that actually does exactly what you said. Put your finances. We can teach it to kids. We can teach it to adults.
Yeah.
It's great. I want to introduce you to it. But what would you say? Now, let me ask you this though. What would you say to somebody out there that might be struggling right now and they're nervous about reaching out to somebody like yourself? What would you tell them as far as like, why they should be confident in making this first step? Like, in other words, how it can impact and change their lives? Just a few words.
Well, that's a problem that I had. And I'm very, very aware of it. So what I did was I made your first 28 days completely free. They're on my website under the videos. You can watch a video every single day. You don't have to watch them in order, but being able to watch a video a day will help you, really just kind of track it. The 29-day planner that I have on my website is a free download as well. Print out the form and just make one choice, right? So if you say, I don't want to drink this month, right? That's kind of big. But if you just do it one day at a time, right? So, and each day of the planner has 3 little boxes.
Hmm.
So basically, you would just, if you're rubbing your knees, if that's a technique that you're using, you just rub your knees. Some people like to wring their hands. um that's the one that's more for adults, right? So you're wringing your hands. I like to do it like a big circle
Hmm.
and then a circle on the other side. You can do your elbows. Basically, you're manipulating your parasympathetic system, your nerves, right? You're massaging yourself. So even if you do it wrong, it will help.
Hmm.
So yeah, put it up somewhere so you can see it. Rub your knees 3 times a day, and really, I just tell people anytime you feel bad or sad, just do it.
So it's pretty brave of
Gives
you.
you
You're putting this out there. 28 days is complimentary to enter into these relationships with people, and you're giving them the confidence. That's pretty bold of you because you're kind of giving your skill away, but yet it's more about people. I think that's why. Where can people find you, TK? What is the platforms you're on? I know it's TK everywhere. Talk a little bit about that so we can direct them.
well, it's tkgrayonline.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you go to tkgrayonline.com, I have all the links right there at the bottom. So it's super easy for you guys. But yeah, take advantage of the free services that are on there. Go through. And then when you get through the first month and you have some of that anxiety down, then you're just like, okay, you know what? I want to meet TK. And I have my sessions set up where you should only need to learn one time. I'll even usually give people a video so they can review the video. And then if you want to come back, like because you have something big you're working on or you just have questions, I have tune-up sessions, which are only 30 minutes. But really, if you're doing the work, you don't need me. You just need me to get started. And then you would graduate into a program more like something you have, Kevin,
Mhm.
right? Now they can actually focus on getting better, right? If that's
Mhm.
the term that we want to use,
Mhm.
or becoming the person that they want to be.
Exactly.
And that's a really beautiful thing to see. I don't want people sitting and suffering, and they shouldn't have to, right? So again, I know if my clients if they're doing better, they're using the techniques. If they're still suffering and they're coming back, they're not doing it for whatever reason.
Must be rewarding, even to know you've helped one person is the reward. I'm sure that pays the bills for you and your heart. TK, thank you for coming on today. I do want to say that this is the beginning. Thank you for sharing your story. There's so much to your story that we need to come back. I mean, I want to break down Trump, of course. I want to break down Vegas. I mean, there's so many Mexico. We can talk about your energy drink thing. We could do episode after episode, but really, I wanted to introduce you to the people here on the Prayed Up Network,
Thank you.
here on the Be Better podcast, and I am the host, Kevin Allen. There's some things that are going to be announced about things we're working with here really soon. They're pretty amazing. You're a big part of them. I just want you to know, I'm publicly saying, you're. I feel like you're a part of this. As I evolved, you've been there with me, and the Prayed Up Network evolved. And so I want to make sure you have a home here, right? So this is your
Thank
place.
you.
And everyone does. I don't turn it, it's funny because not to get off onto a tangent, but I put up something about Selwyn Jones today, a friend of mine who happens to be George Floyd's uncle. And the interesting part about that was that the people reacted. It was, it's a little psychology test. There was people that said, no, thank you. I don't want to listen to him. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If I had a chance to talk to the devil, I'd sit down and talk to him. I think
Heck
that's
yeah.
exactly what Jesus said, right? So, and I'm not saying Selwyn's a devil, by the way, in no way, shape, or form. He's my friend. I disagree with him. I disagree with Stormy Daniels. I'll have her back on the show. I want Donald Trump. I support Donald Trump. There's no hiding those facts. The point is, I just love people like you do, and we want to help people. And thank you for helping me, and thank you for
You're
helping
welcome.
people today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
TK
You're
Gray, there she is. Go ahead, talk about it. Tell everyone, say anything you want. You got a 30-second closeout. Just talk.
awesome. This is just God's work, Kevin. I know it. I know this is God's work. And again, we talked about it earlier. I'm exactly where I need to be. And I'm 100% committed to TK Gray Online. Even the charity that I was working for part time, I let them know there are too many people dying. There's too much happening in the world that it seems like sometimes I'm the only one doing it, but soon I hope it doesn't feel like that. I hope that I can show people how to feel amazing every single day. And it's a gift you give to yourself. I show you how to take care of you. And then it's your job to do well. Kevin, thank you so much for having me.
All right, there you go. What a great interview with a great inspiration right there. TK is a friend. She will be a colleague as we move forward into 2024, building on some of these different projects and opportunities. And ironically, during this interview, she brought up finances herself. And let's give a big shout out to Cash Map, Dennis, the founder, Dennis Williams, of course, a good friend of this show and a big supporter in my life as well. Definitely has a solution to those financial problems. In fact, just today, we found out that there's an inquiry for a big organization that's going to be coming on board with us. 500 employees are going to be taking this service on. So if you are out there and you're listening to this show, and I hope you do, and you learn so many things from TK, learn that finances are also one of those problems you can look into. And Cash Map's got the solutions. All you got to do is scroll right on down, click on the Cash Map, set up an appointment with Dennis. He will set you up for a personal one-on-one. Let him know the Kevin Allen Show sent you. Get all your finances in order. And basically, at the end of the day, it's an app, folks. It's that simple. You download it. There's a service fee you pay each month. But what it will guarantee you in writing, is you will have savings at the end of the year, just like TK said. Man, do I wish I had savings and I had Cash Map back when I was 17. Man, would I be sitting in a different? I'd be sitting on the ocean, not Groton, Connecticut ocean either. It'd be some kind of Caribbean with blue water, guaranteed right there. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and this is a great one, man. This is the kind of stuff I'm getting back to. God bless everyone out there. God bless TK, and you guys just have a beautiful day.